So we want to welcome Commander Lazar here to Wealth and Disparities in the Black community, and also it's Commander Ali.
No, Lieutenant Dangerfield.
Oh, Lieutenant Dangerfield.
And community engagement, we work together.
Community engagement.
Yes,
Okay, well,
yes.
welcome.
Thank
We
you.
welcome you, and we're going to go ahead and start. And opening it, one of the things we want to talk about is the policing of black men, not only here in San Francisco, but particularly the Bayview, because the Bayview is the one district, District 10, that has the large number of African American residents. And at the same time, it also has the largest number of inmates that are in jail, and also the largest number of juveniles in juvenile hall. What exactly do you do when you say Commander of Community Engagement? How is the Bayview engaged with San Francisco Police Department?
Let me just tell you a little bit about me, who's sitting in front of you. So, Lieutenant Dangerfield and I were hired the same day. We're in our 26th year in the police department. I'm a San Francisco native, fourth generation. I'm a public school kid. No father in the home, single mom, really not a lot of means financially. Never really owned anything, and but always wanted to be a police officer. So back around age 20 in 1990, I took an exam. In 2021, I was hired as the youngest police officer in 1991, along with Lieutenant Dangerfield. I've worked all over the city, captain out in the north part of the city, in the tourist areas, North Beach, Chinatown, Fisherman's Wharf. I worked in the Bayview. So I worked in the Bayview in 1993. I was a young officer on the night watch here, back when it was called Potrero Station. And then I came back here in 2001 as a lieutenant in charge of the day watch. So while the Department of Justice report was coming out and being produced, I worked as the captain of Central Station, as I mentioned, out in North Beach. Chief Scott looked at this report, and one of the Department of Justice recommendations was that we're doing some great things on community policing, mainly led by Lieutenant Dangerfield in terms of our partnership, our work with the youth, our ability to build partnership, like we're doing things like coffee with the cop, where you just sit down at a coffee shop and have a conversation, get to meet your local officer. The Department of Justice perspective was, let's put community engagement under one umbrella. Let's put someone at the rank of commander, above the rank of captain, in charge of community engagement, and let's have that person, now it's me, to work with each of the 10 district station captains to support the work that they're doing, to lay out the minimums of what they should be doing in terms of their partnership and their trust building and their event planning. Let's make sure that we're all consistent, not in silos and not like different police departments. We're all one department. And again, my main focus right now is to make sure that we are moving forward on the Department of Justice review and making sure we are completing what they have asked us to do with those 60 out of 272, and we're making our way. Probably have a third of it done by the fall in terms of just community policing. So that's the overview. And how it would relate to the Bayview is to work with Captain Vaswani to say, Captain Vaswani, you're doing some great work, but there's more that can be done. And there are more concepts. I'll give you one perfect example. I just came from the Park District, where they have a concept they're calling Meet the Beat. And Meet the Beat is just like what we're doing right here. It'd be like me bringing in some officers who patrol the neighborhood, and you call some friends, and you call the shop owner, and we just sit down and we just talk. And you meet the officers, and they get to know you, and you get to know them, and you introduce yourself. And he's doing it, Captain Sanford, John Sanford, I mentioned him before. He's doing this, and I said today to him, we need to be doing this at all 10 stations. The Meet the Beat, the ad hoc, informal, community come out of their house, we meet right on the street, have a conversation. So it's things like that that I'm promoting amongst all the captains. So that's community engagement. Questions about that? About the program, about the process, about the organizational structure, why we created the division?
Mm-hmm. Well, I just have a comment. Out of all the things that you're naming, the school resource, PAL, Community Academy, Citizen Disaster, Homelessness in Port of San Francisco. I could picture the community engagement going from elementary children here, and then there's a gap, and then more, older adults, senior citizens.
Yes.
And so one of the things when we talk about our black men being killed and arrested and racially profiled, many of them are high school age or transitional age youth, 18 to 25. And what is San Francisco Police Department doing with that particular age group, and how are you engaging them? Or are they even on the drawing board?
So, great question. Let me give you an example. So, what I didn't highlight is the great work being done this summer. And in the last few summers, Lieutenant Dangerfield has led the charge on that. Several programs. I think we employed about 245 youth total when it's come down to the Garden Project. That's Catherine Sneed's program, where youth around those ages and a little younger are having a job for the summer and staying occupied and knowing what it means to have work. And our Project Pull and our Career Academy and CSI, and Future Trends, right? Future Grads. And we have a ton of programs, targeting the younger side of that equation and it serves a couple of things. One is it gives them an idea about what possibilities there are for them as they get out of school, as they're getting older, giving them ideas about careers, like when they're interning in an architect firm, and they're from the Bayview here, and they're thinking about what their career is like. So the police department, the SFPD, is taking the lead on those things. In terms of folks that are older, like 21, 22, 23, we're always trying to offer opportunities, for example, to be, either part of our law enforcement cadet program through PAL, or participate in our PAL programs, which go to 21. Or we've been encouraging a lot of young people from the neighborhood to be cadets, paid cadets, $18 an hour. They get to wear the light blue shirt, they get to work for us, they get to work while they're in school. We support them in school in terms of staying in school, and they get a little taste of what it's like to work in the police department. And right now, if you brought in a bunch of folks that were 18 to 24, and you brought in these young officers, and we broke bread together, and we get to know each other by our first names, and I get to find out a little bit about you and where you're from, where you went to school. You get to find out about me, that I was a city kid too, latchkey kid, single parent, right? Mom's a survivor of domestic violence. We may have some common ground. We may get to know one another. Then when I see that young person out on the street at 11 o'clock at night, and I'm on patrol, I'm not too nervous about him, and he's not too nervous about me, because we broke bread last week. We know each other by our first names. That's going to be the key to try to resolve some of the issues that you read when you read, Felicia, that statement. That statement to me means that there's walls up between the police and the community. Those walls have to come down. That's the bottom line. Yes.
So you mentioned part of your job is to make sure officers are adapting to the new use of force policies.
Yes.
Petra de Jesus says the new use of force policy is called time. How long do you wait before you intervene or pull your gun? And distance. How far away are you from the potential victim of excessive police violence? That's the Mario Woods complaint. That's the complaint of most black and brown people who have been shot in the Bayview. How do you, and there are people here from the Bayview, and you said your job is to, in a sense, explain what progress has been made. Could you do that now in detail?
Okay, in regards to use of force, or regards to 270?
Time and distance.
Oh, time and distance. So use of force.
Petra said
Yes,
only
yes.
about a third of the cops, San Francisco police, have even been trained on the new
Great question.
Is that third in the Bayview? Is the priority to people? Things like that.
Great question. So she is absolutely correct that about a third have received the formal 2-day training that involves a lecture of the new policy, some video, some discussion, some role playing, just to kind of get an idea about how to create time and distance, Crisis intervention is a whole other topic that a lot of officers are being trained in. So that's the formalized training, but I want you to know that when the policy came out, every police officer not only read it, and I know you could read things, but their supervisors were required in their roll call training, before they go on the street for the day, to go through that policy line by line and told every officer, this policy, you have to adhere to it. We're not waiting for you to go through the formal 2-day class. You'll get there eventually, but every officer, before you leave this room and before you hit the streets, let's go through this policy line by line. Let's ask questions. Let's talk about it. Let's have a couple of scenarios. Let's do a tabletop exercise. So I know she mentioned the formalized training, but you just need to know that all of us have read it, discussed it, talked about it, apply it, hold folks accountable to it, and supervisors to this minute will adhere to that policy and make sure everything is being adhered to, and if they're not, the officers are accountable for their actions if they go outside the policy. And I'm glad you brought that up, because if I were you, I would be thinking, well, then maybe only a third of them are adhering to the new rules and the rest of them are doing whatever they do. That is not the case.
And my question is, or my comment is, you said all those things about all these programs. I don't believe that there hasn't been all kinds of programs since before I was born that had something to do with how you handle a community. I don't think that these are some new ideas, but I don't think that this is a new idea that there is a way to handle this community. And I don't think that just like we're experiencing a certain kind of history, that there isn't an institutional history and memory in the police department all across this country that isn't somehow getting passed down from generation to generation. It's how people are taught. Gwen talks all the time about how, hearing when she was in high school, that her mother, who worked at the post office, noticed that there were all these applications coming from the South. What is it, 2 years ago? There's all these racist text messages, and I think some of it, maybe possibly, was like, what people call as gallows humor. There's some of that, but there's also some definite meaning in there. There's some intent in there. The police officer's Bill of Rights ensures that there are things that we cannot hold the police accountable for. So my overall question is, sir, why should I believe anything you're saying?
Okay, beautiful question, by the way. And everything you said was well stated. Here's the answer. Here's the answer. And you could, believe it or not believe, we don't know each other. If we knew each other pretty well, you maybe not ask that question because you would say, well, I've known you, David, for a long time. Here's I'm going to speak from experience. So from a very young age, I wanted to be a police officer, and I was a cadet as a teenager. So I've been around this police department probably 35 years. To turn the ship around overnight doesn't necessarily happen, but policing today and our relationship with the community and the work that we're doing today is unlike I've ever seen before. And this job is ever evolving. And bad things sometimes happen that cause the change. Or the United States Department of Justice has to come in and say, fix your police department. You have 94 findings that you're not doing correct. And so it's easy for me to say that, and I understand. You go outside and all of a sudden there's a police officer and he's stopping somebody and we don't know what's going on and it's all rhetoric. But I want to tell you, I've seen the direction that policing is going in. I can speak for this city and this department and this diversity and how it's made up. And I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful. And we're not perfect, but we're headed in the right direction. And my hope, ma'am, is that at the end of this journey, when our recommendations are done and we've changed policy and changed the culture a little bit, that we're a model for this country. And when I hear about things that occur in other parts of the country, I feel like we're ahead of it in a lot of ways, and we have a lot of work to do in a lot of ways. So that's my comment in response to your comment. Our job at the end of the day is to help people. Now, things happen, okay? Our job is to help people. Our job is to serve as the guardians of this community. Our job is to help you and support you and keep you safe. And, that's what we need to do. And I'm not saying, and I'm a proponent of partnerships, but there's a lot of people in this city that don't know us, and that's okay too. So
But
that,
let me interject something, Commander. I don't think they were saying that.
Right.
What they were saying is that the police know how to police white communities. And so therefore, since you know how to police white communities, the police rides by, wave their hand, nod their head, and keep going because you know how to police white communities. What they're saying is you know how to police white communities. So if you know how to police white communities, then why you don't know how to police black and brown communities? And that's where I believe that's what you were saying. Am I right? Yes. So it's not about,
okay, I understand.
it wasn't about them needing to talk with you. It was the point where they don't have to talk to you because you already know how to police their community.
well, I would say this, I would hope that all of us, including myself, speaking of implicit bias, is that we wouldn't use a broad brush when we think in these terms. In other words, when you say a white community, I think to myself, well, where is that at? Because even in the most richest neighborhoods, we're so diverse in the city. It's an incredible place. That's why I've never left here. Okay, let me just say that. But Felicia, more importantly, Felicia.
I just can't agree with that.
No,
I'm sorry.
I know. But Felicia, let me just say
but
this.
I can't agree with that. I really can't because the marina, Nob Hill, Upper Portola, they are diverse communities.
They're diverse.
But also there is a higher median income there.
Okay.
There's a different way in which you look at that community versus the Bayview, versus the Mission.
Well, let's talk about Bayview for a second.
Versus Fillmore. And so for you to say, to try to bring it around to the diversity, I would have to correct you and say that is not true because the whiteness of San Francisco, the gentrification of San Francisco, the median income of San Francisco, where the Bayview, the median income is about $29,000. The BA, of holding BA degrees here in the Bayview is less than any other district here in San Francisco. So when you begin to look at marginalized, oppressed people, and that you have an implicit, and for some of those road cops who have an explicit mentality of who they're policing, is totally different. And it's right here in this is proof.
Can I respond?
This is proof. Yeah, I just want to finish my point.
Sure.
This is proof. This is proof. Where you look at, kids under 18, it's over 57.4% change. 18 to 19, there's an 8.4% change. Nothing here in the Bayview is changing. Even though that the police department is saying, we're doing all of this, we're being transparent, we got all these marvelous ideas, but they're not coming to the Bayview. And so for me, being born and raised in the Bayview, it's like we got to be real with what is really going on and not be disturbed about how we say it or not be disturbed about the emotion and the intent in which we say it and just begin to, how are you going to work with these 18 to 25-year-olds who look at police as I don't want to have anything to do with you. You roughed up me, you set me up, you've done different things to me. How is the police department looking to engage that population? Because it's that population that needs engagement. And of course, it's the younger people who needs the prevention, right? Prevention where you don't have to need intervention. Well, how are you going to engage the black people, young men here in the Bayview that needs intervention? And I don't think the police department has put that on the drawing board as yet. And that's the piece where you're going to have to do it. And you guys are going to have to think about how you're going to do it. And you can't get all the ideas from the community. What are some of your ideas? I'm talking about the 18-year-olds, the 19-year-olds up there on Harbor Road, down on 3rd Street, see you, turn their head, don't want to have nothing to do with you. How do we engage that? How do you do that? How do you develop a relationship? And that's the piece for me that I do not see San Francisco Police Department trying to engage, because one, this is my personal opinion, you don't know how, because you're so disconnected. And you know, the way people talk, you know, how they wear their hair, their gold teeth, the saggy pants, all have already had a perception on how you view them. And so how do you move past that? And how is the police department taking on those types of conversations when you're not even talking to the people in which you're going to have to engage in that type of way? And I think that's the harder part. And for me, I just don't see the police department doing that. Commander?
Okay, great question. First of all, Felicia, I want to tell you something very important. You can correct me anytime, okay?
Yeah.
Secondly, we're also broad. I mean, you don't like my.
No, I don't like your broad brush.
But I don't like the broad brush for the Bayview, because I worked out here, and a lot of officers are doing the very best they can, and they're doing it for the right reasons, and they're trying their very best, and they're good people that get into this profession. I just want to tell you that. So I don't want to broad brush it by saying like all these cops, are.
Did I say that?
No, but I just tell you how I'm receiving it. So
Well,
that's why.
That's the thing, and that's the thing. This is what we're talking about.
Communication.
How are you receiving it?
Yeah,
How
yeah.
you perceiving
Right.
it? And you're a commander,
Yeah.
and you're the one who said you've gone through all of this, and you painted us this picture. Who you are, who
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
married to, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But when I say something, then you, commander, have perceived it in a way that I'm saying all cops are bad, and that's not what I'm saying.
Well, that's why we're having the conversation.
No,
so
that's
you can
not
help
what
me
I'm
out.
saying.
Oh,
Okay.
No, I get it.
But what I'm saying is, you as the commander
Yes.
that think like that, how many of your subordinates think like
Well, I
that?
hope that they would all do what I'm doing and ask the questions just to gain clarification. So I understand you
Okay.
didn't mean that, but what I'm getting at is that you had mentioned the Bayview and what's happening, but the bottom line is that you're absolutely right. Like, let's figure out, and I know what you're going to say. You're like, don't put it on the community to come up with this plan. If we're between the 18 and the 24-year-olds, and that's our demographic that have the most challenges with police, or the most challenges in general, then the community and the police need to come together and come up with a plan. And, we have more work to do, because if we didn't have more work to do, today we'd all be sitting here saying, hey, police department, thank you for the great work you do with our 18 to 24-year-olds.
Really related to what you're talking about. So when Mario was first killed, we had a town hall meeting with the police in the city.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people from the Police Officers Association turned up at that meeting in a way to support each other, that they were saying these cops should not be charged with murder. And we were saying they should be charged with murder. And they were the cockiest SOBs you could imagine. And you seem like a nice guy. My district commander's a nice guy in the Richmond. But some of these guys they come out, they want to kill, they want to hurt, and we can't deny this. These are the people that cite the Police Officers' Bill of Rights with smirks on their face. We were afraid that we were going to be hurt. Come on, you're not afraid you're going to be hurt when there's 20 of you and one little skinny guy against a wall. So, we have to address those guys. Guys like you, guys like my guy, Mr. Solomon, whatever, Officer Solomon, nice people, family people, understand that. But what about these guys who are really serious,
road cops.
horror show? They are road cops, they are killer cops. They come from other districts when they have priors, and then they get hired by the San Francisco Police Department here, and everyone looks away that they've already killed 2 people somewhere else, people of color. I mean, this is the reality. What you're talking about sounds like, and I don't mean to be rude at all, but it's like romper room. It's like so nice. We're all so nice to each other. We can relate as people. Yeah, we can relate as people, but there are some cops that cannot, and I believe will never relate as people, because they are racist, they were raised racist, and they will always be racist, and they need to be fired, they need to be off the force, right? Do you agree with me?
when I hear you speaking, what I'm thinking about is that I keep going back to where we've come since that incident, what changes we've made, and like policy and procedures and accountability and supervision is what it is. In other words, I keep going back to this. It's like holding our department accountable, making sure that the officers that behave like that are held responsible for their actions.
Like firing.
Or whatever the process, whatever, you know, there's a whole discipline process that's progressive. No, let me explain. There's a whole discipline process that's progressive. And
You know, we've been working so hard in many different groups in many different capacities to address those issues, and we go right up against that same brick wall. The police commission, we can't really fire anybody. The district attorney, Gaston, we can't really fire anybody. It's going to take us 2-3 years to even process this stuff.
aren't these all these folks are elected?
We need these guys gone now.
Oh, those
We need
are
to stop
all elected people. The police commission, 3 out of the 7 are picked by the folks that you elect as board of supervisors. The DA, he's elected. These are elected officials. You have a voice. You know, you vote. You petition. You know, this lady, I'm sorry I forget your name, said, hey, we went forward and we made change. And guess what? The Department of Justice came in and you changed your policies and things can change.
You know, I'm not quite sure if you quite get it, but you know, maybe you'll get it. But the thing is, you know, we don't trust you because you act like criminals. You lie, you know, you kill us, you beat us, and all the laws are in place, so you don't need any more laws. People just need to start acting like human beings. These people are thugs. And they've been there for a long time. They're still there. And we can talk policy all we want to. But until I see police actually police criminals, even when they're police, because I think I've had a couple of good experiences with police. So I can't say it's all bad. I don't believe that. I just believe, what I do believe is, the good police are not doing anything about the bad police.
So I want to say this. I hear what you're saying. I respect your opinion, and that wasn't he didn't make a broad brush statement. You're my broad brush monitor.
It was pretty broad.
I know, but listen, if I was in your shoes and I had your experience,
Because the thing that I'm saying is that we keep hearing about good cops. You know, and I'm sure that they're just human beings, they're just people. You know, but they're not viewing us as just human beings and people. This is what's happening. And this has been my experience, that's all I can say. You know, since I was a kid, nothing has really changed. Except we know one, we see one now.
yeah, and
And looking at that video, you know, that is not the way you treat a human being. They wouldn't do a dog like that. If it was a rabid dog, they would not have done it like that.
and I'm very sorry for your experiences. You know, when I listen to your story, I can say, wow, if I was in your shoes, no, that's no good. And I understand, you know, and I get that. And I've been doing this job a long time, and I get what you're saying. That's why we have to be very selective when we hire. That's why we need accountability and supervision. That's why we need a process. You know, after that happened, you should have been down making your complaints, doing your, you know, asking for your day in court and all this other stuff. And, you know, policing is changing, and we're not perfect, and we have a lot of work to do. I'm optimistic, and what you said kind of justified in my brain the things I said in the very beginning, like if you knew, you know, knowing one another, having the conversation, talking about it, that sort of thing. I think the cops of those days, if you're talking about you were a young guy, they weren't having these type of conversations with the community. Their windows were rolled up. They were driving down the street. It was us versus them.
I see you.
I just wanted to address some of the things you said, Ms. Jones, regarding what are we doing for those youth that are 18 to 25 in this particular district. We are doing a lot. How are we changing? They just instituted it now. We have an immersion training program for all the recruits in the police academy, and we are the ones that are teaching it. Not many lieutenants go up to the police academy and teach. I went up there last week,
and we role played, we brought in the cadets and we showed them how you interact with different cultures, okay? It's beyond cultural diversity. Remember that was what we was taught before. Then it went to something else, okay? Then it went to competency. So we have to explain what all those things are. Learning about different people and different where they came from, that's diversity. Using what you learned as competency. Now immersion is actually getting in there and doing it. And talking to people in a way that they understand. Whatever language they speak, however they say it, are we communicating? If you don't know what they're saying, ask a question. Trying to get away, taking them to meeting youth in the community with the sagging pants, with the hoodie on, what does that mean? Does it mean they cold? Does it mean they try to be cool? Does it mean their pants don't fit? We have to ask the question, right? So we're trying to work with those people. We're going up to Hunters Point. We have officers that specifically will take these recruits around while they're in the academy and talk to youth. We'll bring youth in. We'll do role playing. These are things that we're going to try. We gotta work together, because in working together that way, not only do you reduce crime, but also we get to strengthen each other and support one another and advocate for one another.
Yeah, but see, the thing of this, Lieutenant Dangerfield, what you're saying, I'm listening, but then also you say that we want everybody to be fired. That's not. See, and that, and wait, let me finish. I'm just saying how you guys are perceiving and what's coming out of your mouths. And that is that we don't want everybody to be fired, because we do believe there are good cops. We also believe that these good cops should be turning in the bad cops. We're saying we want, you talk about accountability, we want those rogue cops that are in San Francisco Police Department to be held accountable. And of course, I have experience in a paramilitary organization, and I know that you guys look after each other. You know, the good old boy system, you know, the guys in blue take care of the guys in blue. And what we're saying is that that has to stop. We're not saying that all cops in San Francisco Police Department is bad. That is not what we're saying. But we are saying there are killer cops in the police department. There are killer cops who executed Mario Woods. There's killer cops who shot Jessica Nelson through a car, which is illegal. And then going back to, you know, for me, we talk about the DOJ and the 272 recommendations. Well, first and foremost, let's be real, a lot of that stuff you guys already have in your general orders. And your general orders have been there for years and years, but you weren't applying your general orders. And so it's not like the DOJ came in and came up with all these new 272 recommendations, but the San Francisco Police Department was not following their general orders, which are already on the books and have been on the books for years.
And the lieutenant brings up a great point, and that is that we keep talking about the cops that shouldn't be cops. Every good cop doesn't want to work with a bad cop. I'll tell you that right now. They do not want to work with a bad cop. And the culture in the 80s and when I came in was exactly what everybody's talking about. It's like, oh, no, I'll cover for the partner, you know, I'll be able to justify. And as the years have gone on, and we've seen the culture change where these new officers, they're not losing their job over their partner. They're not going to jail over their partner. They're not getting fired or sued over their partner. We have a new culture of officers are being hired that we say to them, you will be held just as responsible as your partner if you fail to report your partner, whether your partner is biased, they discriminate internally, externally, they commit offenses, they violate policy. This is a new generation. This is a new texting generation, by the way. They're all young and new. It's different. And are we there yet? We're getting there.
One of the things that I would like for you to do, Commander, and that is we are requesting to see who are sitting on these work groups.
Okay.
And also one of our recommendations, once we see the times, because off the top of my head, I would think that all these are morning working groups and that there need to be changed to an evening working group so that the people you are willing to engage will be able to attend the group.
Yeah.
And so, that's one, I think that's the first thing you should do. Okay, and then, we'll have what, I know, Lisa, you had your hand up earlier, and, you know, people were before you, you want to say something? And then, who else?
He did, I did, we did.
Saul?
Saul did.
Okay, and, you had your hand up. So we'll take these four, and then we'll close out. Is that agreeable to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll be real quick. There was recently a program on the Investigation Discovery Channel called Black and Blue. There was one little snippet, something that you can really overlook if you don't look closely, but it had Halloran in kind of an aggressive way to the interviewer, even in the piece, saying, we're not coming to a knife fight with a knife. And in order to build the trust one is talking about, and to have faith that when you all walk out the door and come across somebody who might be mentally handicapped with a knife, whether they are in this category of black men that we're so concerned about here, I'm also concerned about homeless people. We have homeless people all over the city that are defending themselves with knives.
Yes.
How are you going to address that, considering that was just recorded by the director of the POA
Well-
within the past 6 weeks?
Oh, you think it's that recent?
Yes.
Okay. Here's what I have to say. So our policy, and I don't mean to get in the weeds, but our policy doesn't prohibit us from discharging our firearm if someone's armed with a knife. I mean, it's based on the circumstances, right? I could be standing right next to you in a restaurant, you pull up a knife, maybe you stab me, maybe whatever. Doesn't mean I can't use my firearm. But our policy, as you are very familiar with it, just as familiar with it as me, is that we do our very best to create time and distance. There was a report produced by our department years ago, I don't know if you read it, that did a study on officer-involved shootings and said that most officer-involved shootings occur within 5 minutes of the encounter of the individual. And so, you know, our thought process has been, if you create a distance beyond 5 minutes, there's probably a time of less, you know, greater than 5 minutes, there's less likely going to be an officer-involved shooting based on the study. That's this whole time and distance concept. Okay. All right, so having said all that, you know, our union comes out and gives opinions, but our union doesn't produce policy. You know, our union does a lot of work to protect the Bill of Rights, and, you know, we're all part of the union. But the reality is that we've created a new Department General Order that's given specific instructions to our police officers and our supervisors and lieutenants and leaders about how to deal with people armed with knives, and how the sanctity of life is the top priority, and how if you can create time and distance, if you can call in somebody that is trained in crisis intervention to come in and negotiate with that person. The Fairmont Hotel example of talking to somebody who was unarmed for 30 minutes, then we can be better at policing. And that's where we are today in comparison to where we were last year. And I know you mentioned that the union's talking about this, but the reality is that the officers, the sergeants are responsible to adhere to that policy, and we're responsible to you that are looking at us to make sure that we're following those policies. So, you know, there's messages coming from everywhere. Bottom line is, police department runs the police department. Police department supervises the officers on the streets.
Well, I saw the comment, it was a really inappropriate comment by Martin Heller, and he said whether to win the day. It was very inappropriate in the context of Mario Woods, and it shed a very bad light on SFPD whenever it was said. It was after Mario Woods was executed. So I just wanted to interject that, and I'm sorry.
And I know sometimes the community mixes the POA with the department. The POA is the union. You know, it's a union town, union city. The opinions expressed by the POA are not always necessarily the same as the police department. Now, if you heard us saying that as the management of the department, that's a big deal.
And then let me just interject on this too, because the POA is the union of the police department, and the POA, in order for the police department to implement policy, you have to go through the union and meet and confer on the policy.
That's not meet and agree.
To have the POA agree to the
No,
policy.
no.
Well,
It's
I'm
meet
in
and
the
confer.
union, I'm in the union.
I'm talking about our union, it's meet and
Yeah,
confer.
but the POA has what, 1900 members
Yeah, but
of the police department?
They don't agree, it's meet and confer.
The department can still move forward, they don't have to get an agreement from the POA. The use of force policy now, there's parts of it were not agreed upon by the union, and that policy is still in place.
Yeah, and they protested and brought it to court, and the policy is still in place. It's
But
meet and confer.
I believe that particular policy that you're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, went through the police commission. Am I right?
No.
Went through the police commission. It was voted upon by the police commission on a specific policy around use of force. And the police commission, they did not back down to the POA.
No, that's the end. The end is the vote of the police commission is the end result. The meeting conferred with the police department and the POA happened in the beginning.
Yeah.
When they did not agree, the police commission wants you to try to work it out. When they don't agree, the police commission can ultimately vote and decide what the policy is going to be, and that's how that would
And the chief held his ground on what it should be, and the police commission concurred in the way it went. So it's meet and confer, not meet and agree. Felicia, it's brilliant. Let me tell you, you're brilliant. This 18 to 24, we got to work on this. I have a couple action items I want to make sure I got my marching orders, so when you're done, I'm ready. Okay?
I'm glad you're gonna march to our tune.
I wrote notes. Yeah, I got all this stuff to do.
All right, so thank you for coming, we appreciate it.
Thank you for the invitation.
And definitely, hopefully this is be the start of community engagement here in the Bayview, and you guys would be willing to hear us, and no matter how it comes out, hear with a ear, and and begin to try to work on changing these numbers. And also, again, my concern is, I think prevention is definitely needed, but also intervention is utmost importance around the injustices of the Bayview. So thank you, Commander.
Well, thank you very much.
Lazar,
Thank you for the
and we look forward
invitation.
to working with
It's
you.
great to meet
again.
everybody. Thank you. And it's been a pleasure. I'm going to follow up on the action items you mentioned, Felicia. Who's on the working group? What time do they meet? And if it's an evening meeting, we need to make that happen. Email that back to you. And then I think the kind of on the long term is let's figure out some 18 to 24-year-old strategies to try to bring down some of those issues, So thank you, everyone. Great to meet everybody. Thank you, Felicia.